A federal judge is now calling out the Trump administration for ignoring their order. It marks the first time a judge has expressly accused the Trump administration of ignoring a court ruling. And this one has to do with the Trump move to freeze federal funds, halt payments for grants, and other programs. This also comes as 5 former Treasury secretaries are now speaking out together against President Trump's move to overhaul the government and slash the size of the workforce, including Elon Musk and his Doge team moving to access a sensitive Treasury Department payment system that's typically handled by non-political career civil servants. The secretary's writing in part this: We take the extraordinary step of writing this piece because we are alarmed about the risks of arbitrary and capricious political control of federal payments, which would be unlawful and corrosive to our democracy. Joining me right now is one of those former Treasury secretaries, Larry Summers, to talk more about this. Secretary, thanks for coming in. Elon Musk and his team having access to this payment system, what does it risk?
Invasions of privacy. They are political appointees. It appears largely unvetted, untrained, and with potential conflicts of interest. It risks breakups of necessary payments for people who depends on them, and it risks constitutional challenges if they use their authorities, as some statements indicate they intend to cut off or stop payments that were mandated by the Congress that the president doesn't have the authority to halt. So it's threatening to people, to livelihoods, and to the constitutional democracy that we have.
Just earlier in the show, Secretary, I had the former Republican governor of New Hampshire on, Chris Sununu, and he campaigned against Donald Trump campaigned against Donald Trump. He was for Nikki Haley, so he says he doesn't like him, but he now says that this does not worry him at all. He actually applauds Elon Musk's move going into Treasury and going into this payment system. Let me play this for you.
Do you know how many people have your Social Security number right now?
So you're just saying cool?
I'm saying I don't like it, but that's the society we live in. I mean, it really is, guys. So many people that you don't know that have no security clearance have all that information. Don't fool yourself.
You're just okay with it. You're okay with having them access Treasury Department information.
I understand that about 1 million people have access to my Social Security number right now. And if you don't think that's the case, America, I'm sorry, it just is.
What the governor's saying is that what's needed is to overhaul the government and get government debt under control, and he likes that Elon Musk is doing this. What do you think of that?
I've got great respect for Governor Sununu, and I think there needs to be a lot of reform. There are a lot of wasteful payments the government makes. The government's computer systems could be modernized and upgraded. But that's no excuse for abandoning the rule of law. That's no excuse for allowing the president to do what the Supreme Court rejected when Richard Nixon did it in terms of just cutting off payments. That's no excuse for not vetting the people who are doing it. That's no excuse for politicizing positions that have been held as non-political positions for the last 75 years. So, look, I'm not saying there isn't an objective here that we would all want to pursue. But when we allow a complete breakdown of what have been traditions for who gets to be appointed to jobs in terms of politicized people, when we allow things that federal judges are calling direct violations of their orders, something that really didn't happen appreciably even under President Nixon, who was impeached, then we're in a different place. And so what we need for the country is to find the will to reform, but to do it in ways that are legal.
I want to ask you about something else and get your take on President Trump's tariff moves. I mean, we now have a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming in, 10% tariff on Chinese goods, and TBD on the EU. They say it's coming. The White House says it's all going to be paid for by other countries. What's the impact tariffs are going to have on all of this?
Think about it. If you buy a hot dog and they put a tax on the hot dog, do you think it's all bought by you think it's all paid for by the concessionaire? There is no evidence, zero, that that is the right way to think about the economics of a tariff. When you put a tax on a good that people buy, they pay more for the good. There's no reason why it would be eaten by the foreign producer. And what actually happens often is that not only does the price go up for the Canadian steel we import, but the U.S. producer who has to compete with that Canadian is also enabled to raise their price. So you get some higher prices without even there being any government revenue at all. So this is, economists disagree about virtually everything, but there's essentially no disagreement among economists that this kind of thing is inflationary and in some cases hurts job creation. I mean, I've got to say, Kate, that the steel and aluminum tariffs seem to me to be a particularly odd choice. There are 150,000 people who work between them in the steel and aluminum industries. But if you take cars, if you take construction, if you take packaging, there are 9 or 10 million people who work in industries that use steel and aluminum, all of which are going to be more expensive and less competitive because of the higher priced input. So even if you judged purely in terms of jobs, we're helping tiny industries, smaller actually than the manicure industry, less than 1/10 of all workers in the country. And we're really putting it to some of the largest industries in the United States with higher costs, making it harder for them to compete. So this seems to me to be an example of lose-lose economics.
Secretary Summers, thank you for coming in.